the free man to resist tyranny at every turn. Every man will either watch his freedom stripped away or take action to protect what he loves. Introducing the A3, the newest revolutionary body armor from Armored Republic. The A3 is the new standard for lightweight multi-hit body armor. A3 plates are incredibly light at 4.6 pounds. The patented design captures fragmentation while remaining multi-hit capable. The A3 will stop up to M80 ball, yet comes in at only 0.7 inches thick. The A3 is the thinnest NIJ.06 compliant or certified composite standalone plate that includes the drop test. The A3 is the first of its kind, patent pending, that combines an alloy strike face with polyethylene backing, revolutionizing body armor technology by providing strength and durability while remaining sleek and maneuverable. The A3 is the new standard in lightweight body armor. The fight against tyranny just got stronger.
Everybody's post-meal right now. I just want everybody to know that.
Handel's Messiah. You know, every pre-meal church sings this at Christmas.
Do they?
I don't know.
Joe's shaking his head over there. Gabe doesn't need.
They don't in fact.
No, they don't.
No, they don't really.
They get out the guitars.
Is it just me or is it just make you think of R.C. Sproul?
It's just you.
Oh.
Yeah. But I like R.C. Sproul.
I mean, this was his opening to his...
What was it?
Well, it was actually the second one, but yeah.
Interesting. Merry Christmas. Happy Advent. It started this last Sunday.
It
Right.
did.
Yeah, right.
Amen.
It started for me when we got our Christmas tree after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So,
just do your own
it's just
thing.
just a week early.
Just
I
do
just
your
want you
own
to know
thing.
everything you say sounds insignificant when this is playing. Everything.
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 This is so beautiful.
So for Advent this year, we're doing giveaways.
Yeah.
Every show during Advent.
We're giving away something to club members.
Oh, here it goes.
Yeah.
It dropped.
Ooh, nice.
I don't think that's how Handel wrote it.
It's the Messiah that's gonna be dropping bombs and.
No.
You stop.
No.
You stopped.
You do not do. It wasn't even on the.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? How
doing?
did you ruin such a great? I'm sorry.
Hey, that
Pastor.
was
All right.
good, man. That was
The beat. I was there. I was with it. I was. And
So was I.
You were saying something
so was
about
I.
that.
I don't know, guys.
It's gonna be like that in heaven.
Toby's gonna call us
No,
in
it's happening in
his
heaven.
office
No.
this coming week. He's
Anyways,
like, don't ever do that again.
Yeah. Joe's actually on staff with the church for helping new people.
Yeah.
And I think I might sign these guys.
Yeah, you need me to like figure out where they
They're
go.
clearly new.
Fair enough.
No, all during Advent, we're giving away gifts every show for all club members. And if you want to join the pub, you can get
You
in
can
on the
join
drawings.
into the drawing.
As soon as you join, your name gets thrown in. We're going to get a new list every day.
Yeah.
And we'll do a drawing. So, Gabe, do it.
And I'm giving my office this is our
away the
last
orange
brand new orange
beanie?
cross politic beanie.
Oh, my goodness.
It's my favorite. It fits well. It's
Yeah.
great. I mean, obviously it's a great color because
You
it's
haven't been
Protestant
wearing
orange.
it, right?
Protestant orange.
And then our last edition of the magazine, which is on business, and our current edition
Based business.
is based business, and it's fantastic. I mean, so many good articles. Bonson, Reese.
That one right over there in the corner, right?
That's right. That's right.
That's the
Okay.
one.
And actually, our Christmas magazine edition is going to be going to the printer this week, so probably to your door sometime, hopefully
So,
next
for
week.
this show, we're giving away the orange beanie and the
Yep.
Fight Laugh Feast magazine.
That's right. And I've randomly drawn already, literally randomly drawn club member. I'll just say his first name. That's it.
Okay,
That's
whatever.
it.
You need a drum roll.
Club member Steven. Steven. No last name, Steven, because he's got his last name, but I don't know.
Steven from where? Can
I
we
don't
tell
know.
like
Steven. Okay, that's
from
good.
where?
Don't dox the dude.
I mean, not his home address. I mean, like the state. Like Steven from.
Oh, my assistant
356.
didn't put-
What does that say?
I got his coordinates numbers. I got his GPS coordinates numbers.
Steven, you won.
Yes, we're reaching out to you.
there's
I'll
like-
be emailing you this week.
I feel like
to get your address.
I feel
Is that
like
his last name right there?
Yeah, that is the last name.
Okay.
So,
I feel like we should say something more identifying. Because
yeah,
it's
like at least a state.
like You don't have anything
I just have his GPS coordinate numbers on her.
from the universe.
I have his coordinate numbers where he purchased the
Hey, Steven.
the club membership.
Steven from 5562534B.
Stephen B.
Thank
Stephen
you.
B. All right, Stephen B.
There we go. Stephen B. That's good.
All right.
Thank you, Joe.
All right. Well, I don't know.
That's why I'm here.
I still feel like that's a little slightly anticlimactic.
Also,
but
during the month of Christmas, we love
During the month of Christmas.
getting Christmas cards.
Yeah.
Because this is the month of Christmas.
this is the month
Did
of
we get
Christmas.
It is
one?
all Christmas. We got a Christmas card. I'm not going to read it because it's really nice and sweet and everything.
So you're not going to read it.
From Susie Q.
No, it's from a family. But they do have a specific message for you.
Oh,
there you go.
that's nice. Question.
Pastor.
First thing everybody doing to get a card, you know what they do, don't they?
What?
They look and see if there's any checks in there. It's the first thing everybody does.
I didn't look.
Yeah.
I looked to see what the content was.
Okay.
In there.
Yeah,
Look at
just
that. They're not on Facebook anymore, but they want to be friends with us still.
I care about the
Look at
content
God.
of their Christmas card, not the.
Okay.
Never mind.
Tactics conference is coming up.
Not the
Not
color
about
of
the
the
color
card.
of the card. It's the card. Did you just do that?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Like I said,
Knox missed that. I thought he was going to catch it.
No,
someplace.
I just didn't want to give him any credence at all, credit for that. But thank you, Joe.
Tactics conference is coming up. Learn how to build Christ's kingdom from those who are doing it. Join C.R. Wiley, the campus preacher Keith Darrell, Gabe Wrench, Chocolate Knox, and yours truly for 2 days of boots on the ground training on how to take your community for Christ. Great talks, great food, great people. Come see us in Lafayette, Louisiana. That's only about 2.5 hours east of Houston, Texas.
It's going to be warm.
On January 19th and 20th. And take note, seating is limited. Families are welcome. Come experience some Cajun hospitality while we labor together to build the new Christendom. Beer and psalms, panel discussions, Cajun dancing. I got to
I got to know what that is.
Cajun dancing
Yeah.
is? I don't even know what Cajun dancing
I
is.
have a picture in my head, but I'm not sure it's right.
And more. Go to tacticscon.com. Tacticscon.com to buy your tickets today and use the coupon code FLF Pub to get $20 off your ticket price. That's FLF Pub for $20 off. That's tacticscon.com. We'll see you in South Louisiana this January.
All our club members should know that we actually are producing unique content besides our shows, besides some other club member content.
Yeah.
We've already released a couple shows with This America. We still have another one that we need to drop and more recording coming soon. And we, for the longest time, me and Knox have wanted to do some of these projects. For us, obviously, it's time and money, and us being able to get away from the microphone and everything. So, as club members sign up, they're able to support us. We can do more and more. We got a great new series coming out, or a new show coming out called Soulcraft with Food.
Soul crafting with food, yeah.
Soul crafting with food. You went with the ing. Okay.
crafting.
All right. Soul crafting with food. Actually, I want
Is
you
it soul food?
soul crafting
Well,
with food.
all food is soul food.
Oh, there
When
you
you're
go.
a Christian, you know what I'm saying.
So check out the trailer.
He dies as he's sharing a meal with his disciples. He's washing their feet. He's reminding them, like, don't forget this moment. Do this every time you get together. Like, this meal is central to who you are. This is your identity. So my theology of food is that food brings you to the table, and the table is a picture of the gospel.
Man.
Knox cut that.
I just was thinking, like, all the podcast listeners.
Yeah, they're just like, what is going on?
What is going on?
Well,
A lot of good food.
yeah, if they have the app, they can go watch what's going on,
Yeah,
right? So
sure.
that's a great way for them to get the
Get
app.
the app,
So
join the
hopefully,
pub.
hopefully in the next week or two, I should have the first episode of Soul Crafting done, and that's what I'm hoping for. So
That's a
I just had to
great
cut that
man.
really quick.
That
'cause it
makes
was
me hungry.
So good.
I'm hungry too.
So much great
We're
content.
so grateful to have Dr. Joe Rigney with us in the studio today.
Again.
He serves as a fellow of theology at New St. Andrews College, new member chaplain at Christ Church. Like I was mentioning before, he's pastor of the new people.
The new
And
people.
I think I'm going to send him a few.
The easiest demographic at our church to minister to.
Well, have you met us?
He's a husband, father of 3, author of a number of books, including Live Like a Narnian, The Things of Earth, and Lewis on the Christian Life. He's a seasoned pastor and scholar, earned his PhD from the University of Chester. It's great to have you with us.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming back.
Yeah.
Who's Chester?
Chester is a town in England. University of Chester, like Manchester.
I was hoping it was a person.
No, Chester's
So-
Manchester.
Joe, several years ago, you went on Man Rampant with our mutual friend that we associate with.
The one that won't
Not to be named.
Not to be named.
Not to be named.
Doug Wilson. And you started a firestorm talking about empathy.
I did.
So why are you so cold-hearted? And why do you think
Callous. The word's callous.
your
Callous.
Why do you think your discussion on empathy started such a firestorm?
Because we were over the target.
Yeah.
What target?
The target is, so I would say this, when we did it, it was the first episode of Man Rampant. It was like the first, like, hey, they were, Cannon was like, hey, we're going to try this.
Yeah.
Try it out. Would you be the pilot? And I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. Let's
sacrificial
talk
lamb.
about sin of empathy. It's something Doug and I had talked about over the years,
Yeah.
and had a mutual appreciation for Edwin Friedman, which is somewhere that came from. And the thought was, let's just see how it goes. And not realizing that like it really was much more over the target than I thought.
Yeah.
And then it set off this thing. It's like I started warning. It was like I started warning people about like flammable hats, and then everybody lit their hair on fire. It was like, thanks for proving my point, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think the reason it landed is because we live in an age that's overrun by passions.
Okay.
I remember watching that episode and I literally got bored of it. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be
As one
rude
does.
or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
Are you done?
Somebody turn his mic off.
That was ridiculous. But it was like you guys were just talking about the difference between sympathy and empathy.
Yeah.
And especially you guys focused on the negative aspect of empathy. It's not
Right.
like all empathy is bad or whatever,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And I just remember it's good content. What you guys were saying
Yeah.
was good, but I was like,
This isn't a big deal.
yeah, this ain't gonna do anything.
That's because you're cold-hearted.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I was just validating all of your tendencies.
My wife's listening and it's like, yeah.
Just because I can't resist not making Gabe bored again, can we talk a little bit about
Yeah.
Like, so
Let's
what is
shift.
the difference?
What's wrong with Gabe?
Yeah. Oh, we don't have that much time.
And again, the new pastor, the new chaplain.
Right.
I'm already seeing it. So the basic difference that we were using in that and that we've continued is someone's drowning in the quicksand and you want to help them. So do you help them by jumping in with both feet? That's what empathy demands once and does, is jump in with both feet. Or do you keep one foot planted on the shore, reach in, really get down there with them, but you're sort of tethered to something. You've got your hand on a big branch so that you can actually help. That was sort of the deal. And you're right, empathy in and of itself is fine. I've learned a bunch of stuff through the controversy. It's been fun at one level. Like I've grown and seen like, oh yeah, there's more to it than even I knew at the beginning. But the issue is empathy's good in and of itself, but it has to be tethered. It has to be governed. It has to be subordinated to something else. And we live in an age when that's unacceptable. It's not okay to subordinate your feelings, your emotions to something else. And instead, it's to demand that others join you to validate, to jump in.
Why is there such a visceral demand that it cannot be tethered? There cannot be a standard.
Well, so I think the people they're going to say, well, of course we believe in a standard, but it's sort of like in theory, but not in practice.
Yeah.
So the issue is always on paper. Like this is what's been so puzzling to me is on paper, everybody agrees, right? Like the most visceral critics, nobody's just going to own. We want untethered empathy. We want empathy. They want other terms. They want
Untethered empathy would ultimately be like mass suicides.
right.
Like I feel like killing myself. Well, then
You should.
Everybody should.
Everybody should.
Everybody should.
Right. And so nobody. It's like a envy.
Including the person who's being empathetic.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like with envy, where like nobody cops to envy. They just they talk about how things aren't fair.
Right.
Yeah.
It's unjust. Like so,
Right.
like it masquerades.
Equity, yeah.
Exactly. Envy masquerades behind virtues. This dynamic, whatever this thing is in human beings that says, I'm going to be miserable. I'm a victim, and you need to validate my victimhood, and I'm not responsible for anything that I do. Whatever that thing is, the sloughing of responsibility because bad things have happened to me, is old as dirt. It's endemic to humanity, and it needs to hide. And so compassion is the virtue behind which it hides. The demand for compassion on the part of the sufferer, and then for those who are empathetic, that's the thing that they offer. And it's seen as a more loving response to suffering. It's because it's not merely sympathy or merely pity or merely compassion. It's something greater. And the other thing is, and the whole thing is, it was the definitions. Like it's a newer term. Like it's like 100 years old. It's not even like an old word.
Right.
And so like it's the definition's up for grabs. So I'd say, hey, here's how I'm defining empathy, and everybody goes, well, that's not the real definition. I'm like, okay, what is? And then you get like 85 different responses.
Right.
And you're like, well, I don't think any of us know what we're talking about. So I'm just going to say exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
And the hard part is the number of times where somebody said, this is what it is. And I'm like, amen. And then they're like, yeah, but you're still bad. Because when it comes into practice, it doesn't allow for what's on paper doesn't show up in practice.
It's the same thing that's happened with the word justice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's getting, so people bring you in and say, yes, we all want justice. And then they start redefining what that actually is.
Right.
Is there is the root of empathy actually envy, or is there like a Venn diagram of overlap where you have people who feel bad, hurt for real or perceived hurts, things, and envy the perceived peace and placidity of those around them? And what envy frequently does is it not only wants what other people have, but if you can't have it, doesn't want anyone else to have it.
Right.
So I'm not happy.
Yep.
You appear to be happy.
Yep.
Right.
And so in order for me to feel vindicated, justified, you have got to come down into this mud with me.
Right.
There's
something to that. So, I mean, I always say when people can get distracted by the empathy term and everybody's sin of empathy. And at one level, it shouldn't be distracting because we can talk about the sin of anger while acknowledging that anger can be virtuous.
Right.
Right. So it's like we do this with all sorts of other passions. Sin of, the sin of fear. And it's like, well, is there a godly fear? Yes. Right. So all of it, we can make the adjustment. Empathy is just one of these things that people go, it can't be tainted. And it's like, well, according to C.S. Lewis, the greater the virtue of something, the more corrupt it becomes when it goes wrong.
Right.
Like, so like it's because compassion is such a wonderful, beautiful, godly Christian virtue that when it goes wrong, it goes real wrong. So instead of getting distracted by the term, people just need to go read The Great Divorce. Because
I don't want homework, Joe. I know you're used to that teaching and all.
But it's fun.
We aren't your class.
Because Great Divorce gives you a number of instances of precisely what you were just talking about, which is the anger of the damned spirits at the joy of the righteous. They get put out by the joy and the happiness. And the demand is join us in the misery.
Right.
Yeah.
And they want to blackmail and hold heaven hostage by their misery. Yep. And it's like Lewis is there, he's drawn a caricature, like he's running it out to the extremes. But you can see that in all sorts of in the home, in the church, out in the wider world, in the culture. This is the demand. And then the other thing that I think part of the reason why it set people off so much, and this is so I want to give a hat tip to the critics in the sense of there really are horrific things that happen and people get really sinned against and people feel sorrow and compassion and want to join people in their suffering for, when people have been abused or whatever. And so they're like, you're saying we shouldn't do that. And I'm saying, I'm absolutely not saying that. I'm saying if you're going to do that, you have to reserve the right not to blaspheme. You have to reserve the right to not, like, so Job's wife is a really good example. Like at some level, she's demanding curse God and die.
Well, and she's gone through all the same stuff that Job went through.
Exactly. Yeah. And she's responded to it by saying, why are you still worshiping that God of yours? Curse God and die. And so there's a demand, join me in bitterness in this great.
Even in a place where real horrific suffering is happening.
And And Job said no.
And then Job said no. Now the flip side of that is if you look at Aaron, like one thing got me in trouble at some point was comparing who's the most empathetic leader in the Bible, and it's like Aaron at the golden calf.
Oh,
Because
Right.
here you have a traumatized people who've just been through hell and back, right? Persecuted, suffering, long-term chronic abuse.
their leader's gone.
The guy who saved them and stabilized them, his hands are up, they win. His hands are down, they lose. Can just move his hand, and there goes the water. Like he's somewhere, and we don't know what happened to him, and we're desperate, angsty, anxious, we're
Nervous,
fearful.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
we've been traumatized, and we need something to comfort us.
Yeah.
Make us a God who will go before us and protect us. And Aaron is like, he sees the agitation, the dismay, the distress, and he concedes what should not be conceded. He gives in and says, okay, give me your gold.
That's what you mean by reserve the right not to blaspheme.
Exactly, right.
So compassion, but no blasphemy.
But no blasphemy.
Don't join people in actually disobeying God, replacing God,
Exactly.
cursing God.
And this is the revoice, the same-sex attraction thing that was happening in the church is you need to be empathetic with them.
Right.
And that's why we were coming up with, same-sex attraction, all this different kind of language to be able to, be empathetic with them at some level.
But disobeying God.
But disobeying God, that's exactly right. It seems like the sin of empathy is more using what God has done to you in your life to manipulate others into coming into your emotional swallow or whatever you want to call it.
And it's trading on a normal, natural, and in its proper place, healthy feature of human life. Like emotion sharing, when you're sad, I'm sad. We're friends, so you're sad, I'm sad. You're happy, I'm happy, right?
Rejoice with those who rejoice.
Exactly. Weep with those who
Mourn with
like
those who
that's a command. And it cuts with the grain of normal human interactions, right? Like emotion sharing is good. So if it's good, what happens when it goes bad? It goes real bad. And just what was striking to me in all of this is been waving that banner and then having people go absolutely like they just like it just comes out like they
didn't have any empathy for you.
Nobody.
It's a one-way street.
Nobody's wondering what happened to me as a kid.
Right, exactly.
That would lead me to be such a
Because you
heartless
were beat
person.
up.
Right, apparently.
I mean, I just
right,
look
yeah.
at you.
I mean, right, yeah. Well, I was small, but I fought dirty.
My God.
My God.
But nobody is. It was funny, and this is the way it works: is the person who's most unstable in a situation gets coddled. And in the name of empathy, whereas the person who's steady, sober-minded is expected to bend, to buckle, to cool it, and that's if then you're going to get steered. You're just asking to be steered. You're incentivizing the wrong things. Right. And one of the things I've said recently that really set people off was it is the same logic that Hamas uses. And people get really offended because you're saying that victims and their advocates are doing the same thing Hamas is. And I'm like, well, the structure that you've set up, the rules of the game are competitive victimhood.
Yeah.
Who the biggest victim wins. The biggest victim is off the hook for anything they did because they were abused. They were driven to it, right? And so they're not responsible for anything that they did.
Right.
And Hamas sees that the West is just shot through with that. It's a perversion of a Christian impulse to care for people.
Right.
And the West is shot through with that, and they say, we can play that game, and we can play it better.
Yeah. Right. We can go murder Jews.
We can go murder Jews and
the
say
victim.
we're the victim.
For thousands of years,
Exactly.
for hundreds of years, we've been the victim.
So then what is, when you look at I guess there's two questions I'm having. At some point, this has to go violent. This can't stay where it is. So it has to go violent. But the other thing is, I guess, what's the end? What's the whole point of using sympathy? What are they trying
Empathy.
Empathy, I'm sorry. What is the point of using empathy? What's the end?
I think at some level it feels good. Like when you're miserable, you want people to join you in your misery. Like in terms of it's not.
And there's a natural
and this is why,
aspect to that.
That's right. And this is what This is why I say go read Great Divorce. In Great Divorce, there's the final encounter between the woman, the wife, and her husband Frank. And Frank's the damned spirit. She's a saint. And he's the tragedian. He's got it's a little squat man, with a leash on this very, theatrical ghost who's like, you don't love me because I've been down in the gray town and it's been awful, but I've only been thinking about you without me, and it's this very theatrical thing. It's all a show. And one of the things she says to him, she says, I know that you learned to do this when you were a kid, when you would do something and then you'd go pout in your room until your sister and your sisters would feel bad, and they would come say, well, I can't stomach him being up there by himself, and they would come get you and they would apologize. Right. And so it's like, it works.
Yeah.
And so at some level, it's like, it's that infantile, like it's something that you learn. And this is why, ironically, at some level, like the whole controversies in No Quarter November, starting with the Doug wrote one on cruelty of empathy, brought that back. I got into it with some people online over it.
Spankgate.
And then Spankgate happened. Yep. And it's like, there's a connection between these two things. These are not unrelated because the
children are innocent.
Yeah.
And their feelings need to be coddled.
Exactly. And the disciplining of emotions, the training of emotions is the thing, because people don't have a category for, these folks don't have a category for training the emotions, because any training is suppression. Any training is repression. Any training is denial of that emotion. So the number, like, I remember, it's crazy to me when I'm like, here's the question. Here's the big sort in the world. It's are feelings God, or is God God? Yeah. Do feelings need to be subordinated to the glory and supremacy of God? Supremacy of God over feelings, or feelings are supreme? And the response from a number of people is like, so you're saying feelings don't matter? And I'm like, I don't even know how you guys.
See, okay, yeah, that's
I'm like, no, I'm saying feelings matter so much. Yeah. They're so important. I mean, I'm a Christian hedonist. Like, I've been like, it's funny to me in all of this that the way that people have accused a guy who like studied under John Piper for decades.
But you defected
of being like. But I didn't defect from that. Like, I brought that with me. Like that came with.
Amen. Amen.
Here's like, why do even people talk about affections anymore? And it's like single-handedly John Piper, right? Like, he's the one who like said, hey, Edwards is onto something. Let's bring this baby back. And so John has talked about affections, and I'm like, yes, affections matter. But that's why they have to be governed by something more than themselves, by the glory of God, by the goodness, by truth.
Yeah, I think, Knox, you just said a minute ago, this has got to turn violent at some point. Yeah. And I think I want to hear what you think about this. But I told you this in the hallway the other day. But I'm reading Rosario's.
We got 3 minutes
for Joe. All right, just stop it.
He's got to go to class.
And you just took.
This guy's got to teach.
We'll be fine.
I'm reading Rosario's book right now, 5 Lies. Anti-Christian Age. I told you this. She's got a section on your stuff on empathy. It's really, really solid. And she ties it in particular, and I don't know how much of this is you and how much of this is her, but she points out the fact that in an age where she sees the sin of empathy, the way you've outlined it, as an explicit substitute for the sympathy of Christ, the high priest.
Right.
So Christ in his office of priest, both as sacrifice and then as priest, the one who fully sympathizes with us in our weakness and yet without sin, holy, perfect, righteous, who's then taken that blood into the most holy place and pleads for us. She says, in an age that rejects that, then there is this visceral demand for that sympathy from a high priest. And so we're, and I'm filling in some of the gaps here, but that's the structure that she pictures. And I can't help but think of René Girard.
Yeah.
Where there's this, he picks up on a similar theme in terms of this electricity of guilt and envy that builds in people and in communities.
Societies.
That ultimately needs a sacrificial victim.
It's got to go somewhere.
It's got to go somewhere. And Girard, studying world history and cultures, said Jesus is the final scapegoat. And I think there's an intersection there where you're right. It has to go violent. This visceral demand that you feel my pain is mixed in with shame for things that have been done to you, guilt for things that you've done, real pain for horrific things done, all that stuff. And it's got to go somewhere. And the gospel comes in and says, Jesus is the answer. The cross is the answer. His blood is the answer. He has borne our griefs. He's experienced our sorrows. Isaiah 53 and so forth. Connect some of those dots.
No, that's absolutely right. And I do think the thing that the empathy thing opened up for me was how important the passions are. It's a biblical category, and how passions are convertible. So the more, this is why the folks who can be, who think of themselves as most empathetic and would lean in when it comes to victims, also can be the most angry. And the vitriol can come out because the passions is the thing that's in the driver's seat, and it's the thing that's leading. And so then to your point, it's if if you don't show compassion or empathy to those that we deem worthy of it, then we must end you.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like, so the rage that comes out, because empathy is it's myopic. It's why, and this is the third rail of it, is empathy as a sort of a natural good, a natural feature, is something that women excel in, and for good reason. Like my friend Abigail Dodds has talked in an article before about how mothers have a lot of empathy precisely because their babies can't communicate, and so they've got to learn to intuit what the need is without speech. And so there's a deep empathy, and it's like, so it's a good thing when it's governed, but when it's put in charge, watch out. Right. So like this is it's the mama bear thing.
Right. It's what C.R. Wiley called toxic matriarchy.
Exactly. And it's the mama bear toxic matriarchy. And what do we live in? Like, what do we live in? We live in a society that's governed that way.
That's exactly right.
Because and you have men then who, like Aaron, well, I'm not going to get in the way of that. Like, I'm not going to. And I think that's one of the things in this that I've tried to do is I understand the real evils that people are responding to, and think that you can't lose your head. You have to stay sober-minded. You have to stay tethered to Jesus. You have to be grounded, because that's where it ends. Like,
it demands blood.
It has to go somewhere. The other thing in terms of Rosari is the thing that the empathy people don't realize when I talk about everybody's responsible for themselves, including their emotions and their reactions. And they say, well, victims aren't because they've been groomed and abused and everything else. Like, I get that there's mitigation of responsibility based on people have sinned. I understand why someone would react that way. But the thing that they're robbing them of is, in robbing them of responsibility, they're robbing them of the opportunity to be made right with God. Right. You can have your sins forgiven. Right. Whatever evil was done to you, I'm not. Whatever happened to you, you're not responsible for that. Right. Whatever evil was done to you, you're responsible for the evil that you do.
Right.
That's right.
That's what I call the dignity of guilt.
Yeah, you don't have to
exactly right.
God dignifies us by giving us responsibility for our actions, for our responses. And does that in a glorious way, dignifying us as real moral agents, which initially means, you're guilty. Yes. But that then is a setup for receiving the grace and the forgiveness of God.
And this is why some people have lamented that I became the sin of empathy guy. Okay, like I have friends who are like, you were the things of earth guy, right? Like this, Soulcraft. I'm sitting there going like, things of earth. We're good, checking all the boxes. When I was, and they were like, we liked Joe, the things of earth guy, but Joe became in some ways the sin of empathy guy. And I'm going like, well, the gospel's at stake here. Like this is not a small side, hey, little thing. Like, it does get to the core of what are human beings? What are we responsible for? Guilt, shame, all of those things are right at the core of why this is touching a nerve. Right. And so I don't get tired of saying like, this is fundamental. And the question is going to be, will all of our sin, will all of the sin that's done against us and all the sin that we've done, will it be thrown on Jesus and we can be free? Right. Yeah. And then from that freedom, we can govern our emotions. We can grow in sanctification. Or are we going to let passions run the show?
This is the time of year many of us are thinking about how we're going to pay our medical bills next year. Before making a final decision, take a look at healthcare sharing with Samaritan Ministries. As a Samaritan member, you're connected to 80,000 Christian households across the nation who stand ready to care for one another spiritually and financially when a medical need arises. Samaritan Ministries is affordable and with no network restrictions. You're in control of your healthcare, choosing the doctors, hospitals, and treatments that are right for you. And with direct member-to-member sharing, you always know who your money is actually helping, and they are not supporting medical procedures that go against your values. Get started today at SamaritanMinistries.org. That's SamaritanMinistries.org/crosspolitics.
Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. I always appreciate you having me.
Really appreciate you.
All right, if you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics.
We live in an age of anxiety, confusion, and turmoil. We have a sense that we're sitting on a powder keg, one small match, and kaboom. Leaders feel bombarded by interest groups and agitators, and when institutions fall prey to the spirit of appeasement, paralysis, and excuse-making, the most mature and motivated members begin to quietly drift away. My hope and prayer is that God will use this simple course to encourage and strengthen Christian leaders so that we rebuild the walls of Christendom and show forth the excellencies of the living God in the joy and gladness of our families, our churches, our schools, and our communities.